Falafel, falafel, falafel. It's a beautiful thing done right. And 3 falafels are the perfect amount for a wrap. That said, the good ones can look remarkably similar to the bad ones. There's nothing worse than a falafel that looks crispy and delicious, only to take a bite and discover that it is soft and gummy. I'm looking at you, Kava. To my mind, great falafel has a crispy, craggy, and slightly salty exterior with an aromatic, herby, and soft interior that just holds together. And when I say herby, I mean really herby. Finally, great falafel needs to be fried, which I am wholeheartedly bought in on after trying this recipe 2 ways, frying and air frying, which is a term I dislike primarily because it seems to just be a marketing term for a convection oven. Anyway, I figured I would just spoil that discovery at the outset, since I didn't want anyone getting their hopes up that an oven version would be comparable. That isn't to say that these falafel aren't great when reheated in a convection or conventional oven, though. They are great, but that's because they were already fried beforehand. Okay, enough prattle, let's get into it. For this recipe, we modified Bon Appetit's fresh herb falafel recipe, primarily by increasing the amount of garlic and not really paying attention to the cilantro or parsley measurements, except to be sure that at the very least we met them. Though I didn't do this in the video, one great modification you could do is add in a half a cup of dill, subtracting a quarter cup from each the cilantro and parsley, or replacing the cilantro entirely if you're one of those poor souls afflicted with that soap gene. Finally, one quick note is that you're going to see us making a double recipe, so just pay attention to the measurements given in the video and in the description. Alright, to start, we'll begin the night before, which I did not film. Classic. You'll want to use 8 ounces of dried chickpeas and soak them overnight in a covered bowl with the water sitting about an inch above the chickpeas. The process of making falafel is pretty quick. You only need about a half an hour before you get to frying them, which itself will only take a few minutes per batch. That is to say, you can just leave them soaking throughout the day until you're ready to get going. Assuming you're nice and soaked, let's drain the chickpeas and make our falafel. In a food processor, add your chickpeas and run on high or pulse until they become fairly fine crumbles like so. For us, this process has to go in batches because our food processor is a bit small. We also have to process the herbs and vegetables separately, but you can do this together if you have a large enough capacity food processor. Next, remove the processed chickpeas and add the following to the food processor: a half onion, coarsely chopped, 1 jalapeno, 2 garlic cloves, 3/4 of a cup of chopped fresh cilantro, a half cup of chopped parsley, 1 teaspoon of cardamom, and a half teaspoon cumin. Pulse until very finely processed. It'll almost look like a paste. Next, we'll combine the onion herb jalapeno mixture with our chickpeas in a bowl until they're homogenous. Then we'll add in 3 tablespoons of chickpea flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 2.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. I have to stress here that you don't want to skip the chickpea flour or sub it for something like all-purpose flour. It is key for making sure that your falafel hold together and don't disintegrate into the oil later. Trust me, we've made that mistake in the past and it is very disappointing. Mix everything thoroughly until homogeneous and then cover and set the bowl in the fridge for about 20 minutes. In the meantime, you can clean up your area and get your oil heating up. If you've got a second pair of hands, use them here. It'll make this next part go a lot faster. Fill a heavy bottomed pot about halfway up with oil, ideally something with a high smoke point. It doesn't need to be some expensive oil though. We tend to just use canola oil. Using a thermometer, ensure the oil reaches around 330 degrees Fahrenheit or 165 degrees Celsius before frying. While the oil heats, let's put that second pair of hands to work and form our falafel. The goal should be to form them to about the size of a ping pong. So what you'll want to do is just use your hands to grab that amount, lightly compact the mixture together until it holds, and then gently roll the ball to form a uniform shape. It may take a few tries, but you get the hang of it pretty quick. That said, once you start forming your falafel, you'll see why we typically double the batch and freeze off falafel for later. When frying, your mise en place is key. So for me, I prefer to have 2 sheet trays with a rack in one of them. I use the sheet tray without a rack to place formed raw falafel, and the sheet tray with a rack to place fried falafel so they can drain and there's a place to catch the oil that drips off and any errant salt. With your oil at 330 degrees, let's get frying. In batches of 3 to 4 falafel, use a spider to lower them in and let them fry for about 3 to 4 minutes, or until crispy and brown. Retrieve the falafel with the same spider and salt them immediately. One thing I also like to do between batches is use a skimmer to remove the falafel debris, because this will help keep your oil cleaner and extend its life for multiple uses, so long as you strain it later and properly store it in a cool, dark place. It'll probably take a few batches to get through everything, but once you're done, you're going to have some truly delicious falafel ready for you. Of course, serve it however you want. We usually serve it with a tzatziki or toum, some kind of carb, and some sort of topping. As seen here, we just went with a lazy sauce made from tahini, lemon juice, garlic, salt, and water to taste, and serve the falafel on homemade pitas with a simple topping made from chopped cucumber, tomatoes, red onions, herbs, lemon juice, and olive oil. If you're interested, keep an eye out for a short video on how to make that pita yourself in the coming weeks. Well, until next time.